Good morning. Welcome to this morning service. Hopefully everyone had a nice, relaxing day yesterday with family and friends, that you were all able to enjoy a nice Christmas day. Thank you for joining us this morning, and at this time we'll begin with the reading of Sambujo and Juseige. So if you please join us in the reading of Sambujo and Juseige. If you please join the reading of the three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in a life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Again, good morning and welcome to this morning's service. It is the last service of the year 2021. Next Sunday, our service will be on the 2nd of January, and we will have services not on the 2nd, but we'll have services on the 1st from 10 o'clock, Shishoyai service, and on the 31st, the last day of the year, at 7:30. This is the last regular, sort of regular service here at the Betsuin for the year 2021. But again, please join us for the New Year's Eve service at 7:30 here in the Hondo, which is officially our last service for this year. But for our regular services, this is our last service. I hope that we can, at some time next year, be able to gather together in the Hondo to participate in our services. I know many of you want to be back here in the Hondo, and it really still seems strange, right? This is just a building, 4 walls, ceiling, a floor, but yet it is something that we have great importance. We place great importance in a place that has and continues to mean a lot to a great many of us. For some of you, this may be a place that is new, that you haven't been coming to for maybe just several years. For others of you, you've been coming to this Hondo for generations. Maybe not you personally, but your family for generations have been attending services here. So a familiarity with the Hondo that you carry with you. And I think that's important, that we carry the importance of this Hondo with us, no matter where we are, no matter what we might find ourselves experiencing. That this is a place in which we gather together. We observe these rituals and practices, but we meet our friends, the Sangha members that we have known or are getting to know, and to share in our experience and our appreciation of the Buddha Dharma. It doesn't mean that when we gather together that we're just talking about the Dharma. We're talking about our lives, of what happened and what happened to our friends, or what happened in school, or what's happening in our families. And that's the Dharma too. I mean, the Dharma was not about something outside of our lives. It's about what we are experiencing. It's a reflection of what our lives are about and how we can better understand ourselves and our relationship to the world around us. So when we gather together, we're not just talking about, I don't know, some idea, some shinjin, or what is the truth of Nembutsu, or what is the Four Noble Truths, or not articulating those specific details, but in the talking about our lives and what we're sharing with one another. We're hearing, and if we hear and we listen carefully, we're hearing the teachings of the Buddha. We need to be compassionate. We need to have understanding. We need to have patience. All of these kinds of things that Shakyamuni Buddha talked about and we shared with one another over the centuries, not individually, but certainly within the Buddha Dharma. These are the things that we are reminded of as being important, the things that as human beings can be helpful in how we interact with one another and with the world in which we live. Shakyamuni Buddha's observation of how things work in this world, and how we might be able to address some of these difficulties that he saw and that we experience. And so he made these suggestions. And so when we speak to one another about what we are experiencing, it's all about the Buddha Dharma. But the Buddha Dharma helps to clarify that. It's kind of like passing it through a sieve. All of the things that are essential kind of pass through the sieve, and we can take in and verify that in our lives. Match it up with, or reflect upon how our lives are influenced by what Shakyamuni Buddha talked about. Again, it's not something abstract. It's not something off in a distance somewhere, but it's in our everyday lives that the Dharma, the Shakyamuni Buddha, kind of points us towards our everyday lives, in which we can discover things that are meaningful and important, things that have that connect us to one another, that in our sharing of stories, that we see our own lives reflected in the lives of others, that we have this shared common humanity, that we are all a part. This morning, Desmond Tutu passed away, right? And this is thousands of miles away. His history in South Africa, we may not have any connections with, and yet we can recognize the work that he did in apartheid and breaking down the kinds of separation that existed, and how hard he worked in trying to make that vision that he had, where everyone might be able to participate equally in the work as well as the benefits of South Africa. And he carried that message not just for his country or his fellow citizens of South Africa, but carried it into the world to share with others. A way of seeing one another, not as separate, but as a part of the life that we enjoy. It doesn't matter whether we are separated in our communities, but that when we can recognize each other as human beings, that there is much more that we have that we can share with one another, more than just our appearance, but that within our lives, what we share the kindness and compassion that we can have for one another is the same kindness and compassion that Shakyamuni Buddha talked about so many centuries ago. But today, Desmond Tutu passed away. And we, although again, far away, never met him, and yet here in San Jose, we can think about his work and what he spoke about and how he worked to find a common humanity and to share that with others. Many years ago, when we were at the White River Buddhist Temple, we used to have from Bodhi Day, December the 8th, we used to have a tree in our hondo. Okay, it was a Christmas tree. It was an evergreen that we would bring into the hondo, and the Dharma school kids would decorate the tree. But after the Bodhi Day service, we took the tree down, and the tree was shared with. It was I guess it was still called an orphanage at that time, where children were living, and we took that Christmas tree to that orphanage where they set it up in their place, and it was something that we did every year. It was kind of a practice that we of sharing that we had at the White River Buddhist Temple. We also had a Bodhi tree, of course. We had I forget what his name was, but he would bring the Bodhi tree from his greenhouse, because December is getting cold already, right? So his Bodhi tree, which is a ficus, and it's a kind of a tropical tree, well, maybe not quite tropical, but certainly found in the warmer areas of the world, that this tree he would put in his greenhouse during the winter, and then he would take it out, bring it out when it got a little warmer. And we had that Bodhi tree at the White River Temple when we observed Bodhi Day. So we had both this Bodhi tree and this Christmas tree that we then donated to the orphanage. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we're seeing, and that what we see influences how we think, rather than how we think influencing what we see around us. That if we think of this as being something that I cannot, it's a Christmas tree, so it's not a part of Buddhism. Why should we have a Christmas tree? This year, we were every year at our home. We've been having a Christmas tree in our house, and this year they're so expensive now, and we're being rather frugal. We decided, this year let's not buy a Christmas tree, and we went out looking for one, and we came home with, I'm not sure what it is, but it's kind of looking like an evergreen kind of a plant, and it's about this tall, and put it on a table and decorated it. Much less decoration because the plant couldn't hold up the light bulb, the lights that we would put on it normally. But we had some things that we put on it, and we kind of strung it around the living room too. But those kinds of images that we have, if we limit only to what we see, then there's no more. That's all there is. But if we allow ourselves to think about what these symbols might represent, we have a greater way of participating in that and making it part of who we are, making it something that is important to us. and that we can share in that same kind of experience. Again, Desmond Tutu, so far away, and yet we value what he had to say, what he worked for. The Christmas tree is something that, we think about, well, it's Christmas, right? And so we kind of, growing up, we used to think, well, maybe Christmas is okay if we think of it not so much as a religious holiday, but, as something that a cultural kind of a holiday. But it's there, it's Christmas. And so, of course, there is a meaning that's associated with that. And we can find in that meaning something that is a part of who we are as Buddhists, that we can share in that joy of kindness, of compassion. As we kind of continue in this holiday season that began with Halloween, and then went to Thanksgiving, and yesterday Christmas, next will be New Year's. If we simply go through these rituals and enjoying them, certainly, but then we can also think about what these celebrations are about. And that if we acknowledge the importance of these celebrations, we can acknowledge and recognize the importance that these celebrations have for others. And we can participate in that and celebrate together the kindness and compassion that is important to all of us. Whether, I'm not even sure if that orphanage in White River is there anymore. And I'm not, and again, I kind of hesitate to use the word orphanage because I'm not really sure. It might have been just a very large foster home that I guess that's what you would refer to it nowadays, but that children would stay, and then they would go on to hopefully homes that would invite them to be a part of their family. Well, whether it's sharing the tree with this home or and being able to recognize what that might symbolize to another person, that we too can participate in that we too can find meaning and significance in these celebrations. I went to Valley Fair, and I was not thinking when I went. I went at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was terrible. I couldn't get. I got into the parking lot after getting onto Stevens Creek and got into the parking lot. And I thought it's going to take me another hour to find a space. So I gave up and I came home. It was quite an experience I hadn't been in a mall for must be over a year, or at least pretty close to a year the last time I was in the mall, and it was amazing how many people were there. I'm sure the number of cars on the streets and in the parking lot took up much space than the number of people that were in the mall, but there were a lot of people. When we think about these symbols, these times of celebration, our circumstances have changed, right? We are now in a time in which we need to be careful about how we go out into the world. And it's starting to really weigh on a lot of people. I know my I'm thinking, oh yeah, go to the mall, it'll be okay, but quite different from what we might need to do now, especially with the new virus, the variants that are circulating. We need to be careful. We need to make adjustments. We need to find a way in which we can do the things that are important to us and still be able to share with one another in that. To see simply the simple symbol of going shopping, right? Going out, buying something. That action or that activity, in that, something else is expressed. It's not just to go shopping. It's not just to go out and buy something. It's that which is contained within that activity, that ritual, that is something that we can identify and recognize as being important. We are engaged in so many different kinds of rituals and practices as human beings. We are engaged in all kinds of ways of expressing those things that are important to us. What we share with one another as human beings, again, the kindness and the compassion that we can have in the world around us. If we simply look at the form and the rituals and the practices, then we cannot really identify, perhaps, what is at the core. Shakyamuni Buddha's understanding of what we can do, what we can be as human beings, reminds us of how we might behave in these times. Shakyamuni Buddha's observations help us to better see ourselves, not so much in the rituals and patterns, but in the contents that are expressed through our thoughts and our feelings within our lives. Again, the kindness and compassion that we extend to the world around us. I love watching with family Christmas movies. So kind of was binging, saw Wonderful Life. We watched, Kathy and I watched the old, I guess it was the original version of It's a Wonderful Life. I didn't realize I thought we were just kind of watching the normal one. But it was edited differently, and it was 2 hours long. And there were parts of that movie that I didn't recognize. But it's a longer version of It's a Wonderful Life. Zuzu's rose petals, or Zuzu's petals. There are a lot of things in that movie that I enjoy. What was the other one that we were watching? I can't remember now. We were watching some yesterday too. Christmas Carol. That's the other one I enjoy. Again, the 1938, 1937. Is it that old? Maybe it's around that era. One of the original Christmas Carol. I enjoy that. I enjoy that one, and I enjoy the Muppets A Christmas Carol. Those are the two versions of the Christmas Carol that I enjoy. But these two, right? These are stories that convey something, that carry something. And these stories carry this idea of the relationships that we share with the world around us, and that compassion and kindness are important to us as human beings. Sometimes we get so caught up in things that we forget that at the core of our experience as human beings, in order for us to be able to continue as human beings, there must be kindness and compassion in our lives, in our behavior, how we treat one another as human beings. If we do not, if we cannot, then we dehumanize the other. We reduce the other to simply objects. And as objects, we can be dismissive, or we can simply leave outside our understanding, our experience as human beings. But if we are compassionate, if we are kind, if we are aware, able to be aware of what we share as human beings, then perhaps we might be able to, as human beings, be able to continue and to progress to a world, hopefully, in which kindness is not such a sought-after thing. Well, kindness is simply a regular part of our lives, that it is in our everyday actions that kindness is expressed. Again, when we look at the symbols, when we look at, movies are simply these containers that carry a message. Things like It's a Wonderful Life, or The Christmas Carol, or whatever we might find whatever container we might find for this message. It's the message that's important. The sense of valuing all life, regardless of where they come from, how they originate, or what they might think or feel. That kindness is at the core of our behavior. I think Desmond Tutu would not have been able to share what he believed to be important if he saw the other simply as other, and having the need to defeat them in order to bring an end to apartheid. But his willingness to work with the other, and certainly there was much struggle that needed to take place, but to be able to work together, to find something in common, to find that compassion and kindness that helps to cultivate our ability to see one another, not as other, but as a part of our shared humanity. Today, as we participate in this last regular service at the Betsuin, we gather together in our homes, participate virtually in these services, but together, we are a Sangha. We recognize in each other this shared value that we have. And it doesn't matter where we are, whether it's here in the Hondo. Hopefully at some time in the future, we will be able to, not in the near future, not some distant future, but hopefully in some near future, we will be able to gather again in this Hondo. But even if we cannot, what we carry, what this Hondo represents, the deep connection we share with one another, how we recognize what this Hondo means to us in our lives. We carry in our everyday actions the willingness to listen to others, to share and to be a part of a community, not just here in the Betsuin Sangha, but a community of all humanity. I hope everyone is doing well, that you continue to enjoy this very, enjoyable, hopefully, time of the year in which we would normally be gathering as family and friends to join in being together, sharing life with one another. I hope you will be able to continue to enjoy that. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. The next service again will be on December the 31st, 7:30. We'll be streaming the Juseige service from the Hondo. And then on New Year's Day from 10 o'clock, we will be streaming the New Year's Day service. Juseige, last year, Mikame Sensei and I were the only ones doing Juseige no Kane. I think I lost count. Normally we do 108, and I'll try to keep track, a better track this time. But we'll be able to hopefully be successful at doing Juseige no Kane 108 times. But please plan to join us for that 7:30 New Year's Eve service, and again the 10 o'clock New Year's Day service. No service on the 2nd. Offices will be closed, and because we have the two services prior to that, there will be no Sunday service on January the 2nd. Thank you very much again, everyone. As we close, will you please join in Gassho and then Betsuin. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, everybody.